You traitor! Mrs. Yoon's voice tore through the silence like a whip crack. Everyone flinched. Even the hardened criminals felt the venom in those words. She stared at Jiwoo with pure hatred burning in her monolid eyes, blood bubbling at the corner of her mouth when she spoke. How are you always a step ahead of me? She coughed, spattering red across her pale lips. Her whole body shook with the effort of staying conscious. Every single time I plan something, you... Another violent cough. More blood. You already know. How? Jiwoo knelt down to her eye level. His sharp, angular face showed zero sympathy, zero mercy. Just cold, calculated satisfaction that his plan had worked exactly as intended. I'm not a step ahead of you, Mrs. Yoon. His voice was quiet, almost gentle, which somehow made it infinitely more terrifying than if he'd shouted. I'm 1,000 steps ahead of you. Mrs. Yoon's eyes widened, blood-flecked lips parting in shock. What? Did you really think I wouldn't prepare for this? Jiwoo tilted his head slightly, and the intricate black dragon tattoo on his neck seemed to shift in the dim lighting. After what I did to your psychotic daughter? He leaned closer, so close Mrs. Yoon could see the absolute emptiness in his dark eyes, the void where mercy should have been. I knew you would come for revenge. I knew you'd target Naima. Or her uncle. You're predictable, Mrs. Yoon. Grief makes people predictable. Mrs. Yoon tried to speak, but only managed another wet cough that sprayed blood onto her expensive blazer. The moment you started making moves, the moment you contacted Taehyung, the moment you planned this little boardroom coup, I was already 10 plays ahead. He smiled slightly, and it didn't reach his eyes. The 15 masked men that took the pastor from Taehyung's location? He glanced at Taehyung, whose face had gone completely white with dawning horror. Those were my men, gasps echoed around the room. Even the moguls who'd remained loyal to Jiwoo looked shocked at the depth of his planning. Taehyung's damaged face showed complete devastation as the truth settled over him like a burial shroud. Uncle Solomon is in my penthouse. Safe. Protected. Probably eating my chef's cooking and praying for all our souls right now. Jiwoo stood slowly, brushing invisible dust from his expensive black suit. You never had a chance, Mrs. Yoon. This was over before it started. You just didn't know it yet. He looked down at her like she was an insect, something small and insignificant that had dared to crawl into his world. Jiwoo turned away from the dying woman on the floor. His eyes found Naima across the room. He reached Naima and gently took her hands in his. I told you to trust me. Naima's breath hitched in her throat. I wasn't a fool after I took her psychotic daughter away. He reached up with one hand and cupped her face, his thumb brushing away the tears that kept falling. I knew she would come for you. Sooner than I expected, actually. Grief accelerates revenge. Did you really think I would let anyone hurt you? Naima's lip trembled, but she couldn't speak. Too much emotion was lodged in her throat like a physical thing. Did you really think I would let anyone lay a hand on anyone you love? She shook her head slightly, sending the beads in her cornrows clicking softly. Jiwoo's dark eyes bored into hers with an intensity that made her feel like he could see straight through to her soul. I have never felt this way before, Naima. But for you? He paused, letting the weight of what he was about to say build between them. My black African girl, I would break the world. Naima's eyes overflowed with fresh tears that spilled down her cheeks like rivers. Your uncle is fine. He's in my penthouse. Safe. Waiting for you. Naima's knees buckled beneath her. Jiwoo caught her instantly, his arm wrapping around her waist to hold her upright against his chest. I just needed to know who would betray me. His eyes flicked toward Taehyung, then swept across the moguls pressed against the wall like condemned men awaiting execution. And now I know exactly who my enemies are. Naima stared up at Jiwoo, really seeing him for perhaps the first time. This man who thought 10 moves ahead while everyone else was still trying to understand the current play. Who had protected her uncle while letting everyone, including her, believe he was in mortal danger? Who had orchestrated an entire conspiracy just to flush out traitors like a surgeon removing cancer? Who would break the world for her? Something inside her shifted. Not broke. That would imply damage. This was transformation. Evolution. The shedding of an old skin that no longer fit who she was becoming. She grabbed Jiwoo by the neck with both hands and pulled him down to her level. Their lips crashed together with a force that spoke of desperation and relief and possession, all tangled into one fierce kiss. No hesitation, no holding back, no more pretending she was that innocent church girl who blushed at his touch. She kissed him like he was oxygen and she'd been drowning, like he was home and she'd been lost in the wilderness, like he was hers and she would fight God himself if anyone tried to take him from her. Jiwoo responded immediately, as if he'd been waiting for this, for her to finally claim him as completely as he'd claimed her. One arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her flush against his body until there was no space left between them. His other hand tangled carefully in her shorter cornrows, mindful of the beaded ends that clicked softly with their movement. He kissed her back with a decade of restraint dissolving in a single moment. All the control he maintained in every other aspect of his life evaporated when it came to her. The room disappeared completely. Uncle Solomon? Mrs. Yoon bleeding on the floor? Tae-hyung with his shattered loyalty? The moguls watching this intimate moment? None of it mattered. None of it existed. Just this. Just them. Just the collision of two worlds that should never have met but couldn't exist apart anymore. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, lips swollen, pupils dilated, Naima kept her hands locked behind his neck. She wouldn't let him pull away. Couldn't let him create even an inch of distance between them. I don't care what you've done. Her voice was fierce in a way it had never been before, determined, certain. A completely different Naima than the one who'd walked into this restaurant an hour ago. I don't care what you're going to do. She gripped his shirt tighter, wrinkling the expensive fabric in her fists. I know what it means to almost lose a loved one, and I would break hell for them too. What are you going to do to all of them? Jiwoo's face returned to that cold calculation that made him Seoul's most dangerous man. But then he surprised everyone in the room, including himself. You tell me. Jiwoo was giving her the choice. The church girl, the believer, the innocent who'd walked into his world. What would she choose? Naima stopped directly in front of Mrs. Yoon and knelt down, deliberately mirroring what Jiwoo had done moments earlier. Woman to woman, one who had lived by violence her entire life, one who had lived by faith until tonight. You came for the only blood I have left in this world. Aren't you a church girl? Mrs. Yoon coughed, spattering more blood across her pale lips. All that faith? All those prayers? All that talk about forgiveness and turning the other cheek? She laughed again. That cruel, mocking sound that had probably terrorized dozens of people over her lifetime in organized crime. You'll go to hell for this. For choosing him. For wanting revenge instead of offering the other cheek like your precious priest taught. Mrs. Yoon's eyes glittered with malicious satisfaction even as her life bled out onto expensive carpet. She was dying, but she could still wound with words. Everything you believed, everything your uncle taught you, you're throwing it all away for a murderer, a killer, a man with more blood on his hands than Pontius Pilate. Naima didn't flinch, didn't look away, didn't show even a flicker of the doubt Mrs. Yoon was trying to plant in her heart. Her hand moved unconsciously to touch her silver cross necklace. Her fingers wrapping around that symbol of faith she'd worn since her baptism when she was 12 years old. That reminder of who she was supposed to be. When she spoke, her voice was still eerily calm. I guess it's blood for blood then. Mrs. Yoon's smile faltered slightly. Something in Naima's eyes made the dying woman uncomfortable in a way that violence never had. And if I go to hell for this... Naima stood slowly, looking down at Mrs. Yoon with something cold in her expression. Something new, something that hadn't existed in her before tonight. Then I'll meet you there. She turned back to Jiwoo. Let's do it your way. Everything happened in the span of 3 heartbeats. Mrs. Yoon's good left hand, the one not clutching her bleeding shoulder, slowly reached into her designer purse on the floor beside her and pulled out a gun. Gun! One of the moguls shouted, but it was already too late. Mrs. Yoon aimed at Jiwoo's back. He was turned away, focused on Naima, vulnerable in a way he never allowed himself to be. A perfect shot. One chance to take him to hell with her. If I'm going to hell... Her voice cracked but carried across the room. Everyone turned at the sound. You're coming with me. But Taehyung saw it all. He threw himself between Jiwoo and Mrs. Yoon just as her finger completed its pull on the trigger. Bang. Taehyung's body jerked violently as the bullet entered his chest, right side. Then he fell. Taehyung! Naima screamed. She dropped to her knees beside his falling body. No, 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 no. Taehyung coughed, and blood appeared on his lips, dark red, almost black in the dim light. His damaged face, already a canvas of purple-yellow bruises from Jiwoo's beating, the split lip, the swollen eye, now showed fresh agony layered over old pain. But somehow, impossibly, he tried to smile. That same crooked smile he'd given Naima when they first met at the university. When he'd thought maybe, just maybe, he could save her from this world. I'm a dead man already, Naima. His voice was weak, each word a struggle against failing lungs and flooding blood. I knew it, the moment I betrayed him. Dead man walking. He coughed again, more violently this time. More blood painted his lips and dripped down his chin onto his hoodie where it blended with the stain from the gunshot wound. Better use my last breath to do something good. Something that matters. His hand reached up with trembling fingers and touched her face, leaving a bloody handprint on her deep chocolate brown skin. The mark looked almost ceremonial, a final blessing or a curse, impossible to tell which. I'm sorry, Naima, for everything, for all of it. If you're just joining us now, you need to stop and go back to part 1 immediately, because you have no idea how we got here. The innocent pastor's niece fell in love with Seoul's most dangerous mafia lord. And if you're already part of this community, thank you for your support. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss mind-blowing K-dramas like this. You, Mrs. Yoon yelled, this is all your fault. If you never came to Seoul, if you never seduced him with your exotic face and your innocent act. Her finger tightened on the trigger, knuckle going white with pressure. Jiwoo raised his own gun, but before he could shoot, Naima's hand, operating on pure instinct, on some survival mechanism she didn't even know she possessed, closed around something lying on the floor beside Taehyung. His gun, the one that had fallen from his hoodie pocket when he collapsed, and she fired. Bang! Mrs. Yoon screamed as she fell to the floor, but Naima wasn't done. Her hand was steady now, no longer trembling. Her eyes were cold in a way they'd never been before. The church girl, who believed in forgiveness, was dead. What remained was something new, something harder, something capable of terrible things. She fired again. Bang! Still, Naima continued. One more shot, one final judgment. Bang! Mrs. Yoon fell completely now, collapsing backward onto blood-soaked carpet that squelched beneath her weight. Then went still. Mrs. Yoon was dead. Jiwoo stood frozen several feet away, his own gun still in his hand, but forgotten now. He stared at Naima like he was seeing her for the first time, really seeing her. Not the innocent girl he'd met at that club months ago, but whatever she'd transformed into tonight. The gun fell from Naima's hands suddenly, clattering to the floor like it burned her palms. She stared at her empty hands as if they belonged to someone else, turning them over to see her palms, the blood under her fingernails, the gunpowder residue already leaving dark marks on her deep brown skin. Like she'd just realized what those hands had done, what they were capable of, what she'd become in the space of 3 heartbeats and 3 gunshots. Jiwoo held her as they both heard Taehyung's voice. At least this way. Taehyung struggled to draw breath, each inhale a rattling gasp that sounded like his lungs were filling with fluid. At least, I died doing something right, something that matters, something good. Jiwoo? Taehyung's eyes locked on his former brother with an intensity that defied his failing body. The man he'd served for 10 years. The man who'd given him purpose when he had none. The man he'd betrayed. The man he'd just saved with his last act on Earth. Can you forgive me? Jiwoo's face showed nothing at first. That stone-cold mask he wore so well. The one that made enemies tremble and allies calculate their loyalty. But his eyes betrayed him. Those dark, predatory eyes that missed nothing showed something underneath the ice. Pain. Real, genuine, human pain. He wouldn't let it surface completely. Couldn't allow that vulnerability even now. But it was there, visible to anyone who knew how to look. Finally, Jiwoo spoke, his voice rougher than usual, gravel over glass. You're a fool. But there was no anger in those words, no condemnation, something else entirely, something softer, buried so deep most people would miss it. Affection, grief, love that survived despite everything that had tried to kill it. Taehyung smiled slightly, blood staining his teeth in a crimson mockery of joy. Yeah, I know. Always was. You're fool. Taehyung turned, back to Naima. I'm sorry. The words came out thick with blood and regret. For everything. For the pastor, for kidnapping him, for trying to take you from Jiwoo. His eyes showed genuine remorse now, all pretense stripped away by approaching death. When you're dying, there's no point in lying anymore. You were right about me. I wasn't better than him. His voice dropped even lower, forcing Naima to lean closer to hear. I was worse. Because I was weak. Because I let my feelings, let my jealousy, make me a traitor. No, Naima tried to protest, to offer comfort, but he cut her off with a slight shake of his head that cost him dearly in pain. Let me finish. Don't have much time. He coughed violently, his body convulsing. More blood sprayed from his lips, spattering Naima's dress with fresh crimson. You loved who you loved. You chose who you chose. Nothing wrong with that. Can't help who your heart wants. Taehyung looked back at Jiwoo, gathering what remained of his strength for these final words. The most important words he'd ever say. I didn't regret any of the bullets I took for you, brother. Not a single one. Not the warehouse, not the docks, not tonight. Jiwoo's jaw clenched tighter, and for just a moment, barely a flicker, moisture appeared in his eyes before he blinked it away. He wouldn't cry. Couldn't cry. Had trained himself for decades to show no weakness. But Taehyung saw it anyway in that split second before control reasserted itself. I truly loved you. Like a brother. Like family I never had. Like the only person who ever gave a damn whether I lived or died. Taehyung's breathing was becoming more labored with each passing second, each breath a struggle against lungs that were filling with blood. In my next life, he paused to cough, spraying more blood. I'll take more bullets for you. I'll be better. I'll be stronger. I won't... Another violent cough that shook his entire frame. I won't betray you. Won't let jealousy make me weak. Won't let anything come between us. Jiwoo's hand moved finally, reaching out to rest on Taehyung's shoulder in a gesture that spoke volumes. Just for a moment, but it was enough. You already did better than most. Jiwoo's voice was quiet, meant only for the dying man's ears. Most people run when things get hard. You came back at the end. You took the bullet. That counts for something. I'm glad. I got to serve you. Till the very end. Till the last heartbeat. His eyes were losing focus now. Even if Mrs. Yoon used me in my desperate time, even if I was weak, even if I betrayed everything, his breathing was becoming more erratic, each inhale shallower than the last. I hope you forgive me, brother. Hope you understand. I never stopped loving you, even when I hated you, even when I wanted what you had. Forgive me? We'll see in hell then, Jiwoo said with a hint of dark humor in his voice. Keep a spot for me, close to Mrs. Yoon. I'm sure she'll have plenty to say when I get there. Taehyung actually laughed at that. A wet, painful, beautiful sound that should have been impossible for a dying man, but somehow emerged anyway. Jiwoo reached out his hand, palm facing Taehyung. The brotherhood gesture they'd done 1,000 times over the years. After successful missions, after fights won and lost, in celebration and in grief, the simple touching of knuckles that meant more than any words could convey. Taehyung reached up with his last reserves of strength, his arm shaking like a leaf in a storm, fingers trembling. But he made it. His knuckles touched Jiwoo's in that familiar gesture. Brothers again. If only for this moment, if only for this heartbeat. Taehyung turned to Naima one final time. Jiwoo didn't kill that girl years ago at the club. The one Mrs. Yoon talked about. Taehyung struggled for breath, each word costing him more than the last. Everything he loves doesn't die in his hands. That's a myth, a lie. He's killed, yes, dozens, but never the people he actually loves. Then his eyes closed. Taehyung was dead. Jiwoo's eyes swept the room with cold calculation, taking inventory of what remained now that the violence had ended and reality was reasserting itself. Two of the traitor moguls immediately dropped to their knees as Jiwoo approached. Please, Jiwoo see, please have mercy. We made a terrible mistake. We were foolish. We were weak. Think of our families, our children, our wives who've done nothing wrong. I knew this day would come. When I took over from my father 7 years ago, I told everyone the rules. I laid them out clearly so there could be no confusion, no misunderstanding. Loyalty is everything. Family is everything. Betrayal is death. He stopped directly in front of the kneeling moguls, looking down at them like a king judging peasants who'd committed treason against the crown. When I said there was going to be a sweep, he paused, letting the silence build. I meant a total, complete, sweep. Not half measures, not mercy for the weak. Total elimination of every traitor and every weak link that could compromise us later. The moguls who'd stayed loyal watched in silence from their position near the door. The older wise one with gray hair. The traditional one who'd questioned Mrs. Yoon's plan from the start. The quiet calculating one who'd seen which way the wind was blowing and chosen correctly. They knew better than to interfere. This was between Jiwoo and the men who'd betrayed him. Their role was to witness and remember and spread the word about what happened to traitors. Please, Jiwoo-si, we'll serve you faithfully from now on. We've learned our lesson. Our families depend on us. Our wives, our children. They've done nothing wrong. They don't deserve to suffer for our mistakes. I'm not wicked. I'll make sure your families never suffer. That they're taken care of financially. That your wives receive generous pensions and your children's education is fully funded through university. Escort these gentlemen out and take Naima to the penthouse. He indicated the 3 moguls who'd stood with him during Mrs. Yoon's attempted coup. The older wise one, the traditional one, the calculating one. Wait, what about us? Please, we're sorry. We'll do anything. Anything. We'll serve you for the rest of our lives. We'll prove our loyalty every single day. We have information about other traitors, about Mrs. Yoon's other plans. We'll tell you everything. Don't leave us here, please. Don't worry, I'll make her slow and painless, Jiwoo said. Then he walked toward the door without looking back, his footsteps steady and unhurried. He'd made his decision. The sentence had been passed. All that remained was execution. Jiwoo walked down the service hallway toward the back of the building, reached the maintenance area at the back of the building, and found exactly what he was looking for without having to search. He'd been here before. Planned this. Always planning, always 3 steps ahead. Industrial gasoline containers lined one wall, large plastic jugs used for the backup generators, for emergency heating, for the maintenance equipment that kept this building running. Innocent purposes. Deadly potential. He picked up the first container with one hand, then began pouring a trail of amber liquid across the concrete floor. When the second container was empty, Jiwoo set it down beside the first with a hollow thunk of plastic on concrete. He pulled out a lighter from his suit pocket, silver, expensive, engraved with an intricate dragon design that matched his tattoo. A gift from his father before he died and passed his empire to Jiwoo. He'd carried it for 7 years and never used it to light a cigarette. He didn't smoke, but he'd always known someday it would serve a purpose. Today was that day. I haven't felt this much peace in a while. Jiwoo spoke almost casually, like he was commenting on the weather or discussing dinner plans. The older mogul who'd followed him nodded slowly, understanding that this was ritual, that certain words needed to be said before certain acts were committed. Betrayal is a poison that spreads through an organization like cancer. The old man's voice was gravelly from decades of cigarettes and shouting orders. Removing it before it metastasizes brings clarity, brings strength. The old boss used to say a purge every few years kept everyone honest. Jiwoo flicked the lighter, and a small flame sprang to life, orange and yellow and hungry for fuel. What comes next? The old mogul asked the question that was probably on everyone's mind. With Mrs. Yoon dead, Tae-hyung dead, 3 traitor moguls about to die, the power structure had been completely reshuffled in a single night. We'll see. His voice was quiet but certain. Whoosh. Fire exploded to life along the trail with a sound like the world taking a deep breath before screaming. They fell to their knees as their bodies refused to function properly in the superheated, oxygen-depleted environment. One by one, they collapsed. Not from the fire itself, but from the smoke inhalation. Their bodies shut down as carbon monoxide replaced oxygen in their bloodstream. They lost consciousness before the flames ever reached their skin. A mercy Jiwoo probably hadn't intended but had achieved anyway. Death by suffocation was faster, less painful than burning alive. Jiwoo stepped out into Seoul's night air and took a deep breath, filling his lungs with clean oxygen that didn't smell like blood or gunpowder or burning flesh. He felt at peace, complete peace. Now he could focus on what actually mattered. Naima. "Uncle!" Naima yelled as she got to the penthouse and saw Uncle Solomon. "Naima!" He opened his arms and she crashed into him with enough force to make him stumble backward. But he caught her, held her, wrapped his strong arms around her in the embrace she'd needed since the moment she thought she'd lost him. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Naima sobbed into his shoulder. "Shh, my child. I'm here. I'm safe. Everything's okay now. I didn't realize how much I loved you until I almost lost you." Naima pulled back enough to look at his face through her tears. "I thought you were gone. I thought they were going to..." She couldn't finish the sentence. "But I'm not gone. I'm right here. I've been terrible to you." The words poured out of Naima like a confession she'd been holding in for months. "The way I treated you, yelling at you, disrespecting you." "Stop." Uncle Solomon's voice was firm but gentle. "No, Naima. I'm sorry too. I made mistakes. Big ones that I need to own. I'm not a saint, child. Never claimed to be, though my collar might make people think otherwise." He smiled sadly. "I judged you instead of loving you. Controlled you instead of guiding you. Tried to force my will on you." He took a shaky breath, and Naima could see the weight of regret bending his shoulders down. "You're not a child anymore. You're a woman, 19 years old enough to make your own choices and live with the consequences." "Naima." She turned at the familiar voice, and her eyes went wide with shock. Keisha stood in the doorway that led to the penthouse's kitchen area, leaning against the frame with a mug of what smelled like expensive coffee in her hands. "Keisha!" Naima's voice came out, strangled with surprise. "What? How? When?" "I'm here, babe." The penthouse door opened, and Naima's entire body reacted before her brain processed the sound. Jiwoo entered. Naima didn't think, didn't hesitate, didn't care that her uncle was watching. She ran, desperate, possessive, claiming him in front of witnesses like she was staking a public claim to his soul. Jiwoo caught her easily. He always caught her, one arm wrapping around her waist to support her weight, the other hand tangling in her disheveled cornrows, carefully avoiding the beaded ends. He kissed her back with equal intensity, with weeks of restraint finally dissolving completely. His control slipped for the first time all night. The mask fell away. He was just a man holding the woman he loved like she was the only thing keeping him tethered to humanity. The kiss lasted forever and no time at all, and when they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, lips swollen, pupils blown wide, Naima kept her arms locked behind his neck. She wouldn't let him go, couldn't let even an inch of space exist between them. Then she remembered. Uncle Solomon was right there, standing by the windows, watching this entire display with an expression Naima couldn't quite read. She unwrapped her legs from Jiwoo's waist so fast she nearly fell, but he kept his arm around her waist, steadying her. She stepped back, face flushing with embarrassment, suddenly unable to meet her uncle's eyes. "You're an adult, Naima." Those 4 words carried the weight of permission, of acceptance, of blessing. As much as a pastor could bless something he probably still believed was sinful. Naima stared at him, not quite believing what she was hearing. "I may not understand your choices. I may worry every single day. I may pray for your souls until my knees are raw from kneeling." His smile turned slightly sad but remained genuine. "But you're a grown woman. You have to live your own life, make your own choices, walk your own path even if it takes you places I can't follow." He looked at Jiwoo then, really looked at him for perhaps the first time since they'd met, sizing him up not as the enemy who'd stolen his niece's innocence, but as the man who clearly loved her enough to move heaven and earth to protect her. "I have to trust you. Trust God to work in your life even when I don't see how. And," his voice caught slightly, "and let you go, even though it tears my heart in half to do it." Keisha, who'd been watching this entire exchange with wide eyes while sipping her coffee like she was watching the most dramatic Kdrama ever filmed, spoke up with perfect timing. "Okay, this is beautiful and emotional and all, but Uncle Solomon, maybe we should give them some privacy." She set down her coffee mug and moved toward the older man, taking his arm with easy familiarity. "Come on, this place has like 6 bedrooms apparently. Let's find ours and give the lovebirds some space to reconnect." She winked at Naima, utterly shameless. "And I saw a wine cellar that looked expensive as hell. Let's go explore." "I don't drink alcohol," Uncle Solomon started automatically. "Grape juice then. Sparkling cider? Whatever. The point is, we're leaving." Keisha was already tugging him toward the hallway that led to the bedrooms. "Come on, Pastor. Let them have their moment." The moment the bedroom door clicked shut behind Keisha and Uncle Solomon, Jiwoo pulled Naima close again. Not sexually, not yet. Just holding her like she was something precious he'd almost lost. He kissed her again, and this time it was different. Slower, deeper. Not desperate anymore, but claiming. Possessive. A kiss that said, "You're mine, and I'm never letting you go." When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jiwoo rested his forehead against hers and spoke in that quiet voice he only used with her. "No one will ever hurt you again." Naima looked down at her hands, at the blood still visible under her fingernails, despite trying to clean them in the car. Evidence of what she'd done, what she'd become. It seems my hands are stained with blood now. Jiwoo took both her hands in his and brought them to his lips, kissing each knuckle with reverent gentleness. Do you regret it? Naima thought about it honestly, replaying those moments in her mind. Somehow, she spoke slowly, working through her feelings in real time. Everything made me stronger, harder, more capable of surviving in this world you live in. She looked up at him, meeting those dark, predatory eyes without flinching. It was between her or me in that moment, kill or be killed. And I was done letting people hurt me or the people I love. Done being helpless, done being the victim who needed rescuing. Something shifted in Jiwoo's expression. Pride mixed with concern, mixed with possession, all tangled together. Should I be scared of you now? He said it playfully, with that slight smirk that used to make her blush. But underneath the teasing was a real question about whether he'd created something he couldn't control. Naima managed a small smile despite everything, and it was a different smile than she'd ever given him before. Maybe you should be. They moved to the massive floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of Seoul stretching to the horizon. The city glittered below them like a carpet of stars pulled down from the sky. Millions of lights, millions of lives, millions of stories playing out in the darkness. Jiwoo stood behind Naima, arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. She leaned into him, letting his warmth seep into her cold skin, letting his steady heartbeat ground her spiraling thoughts. What will happen to the business? Naima asked quietly. Jiwoo rested his chin on top of her head, careful of the beads in her cornrows. I don't know yet, not exactly. The power structure has been completely reshuffled tonight. There will be challenges, other organizations testing our strength, internal struggles for the newly opened positions. His arms tightened slightly around her waist. But all I know for certain is I want you in my arms for the rest of my life. Everything else is just details I'll figure out as I go. She should have been happy hearing that, but her face showed something else. Sadness, grief, uncertainty. Jiwoo noticed immediately. Of course he did. He noticed everything about her. What's wrong? Naima opened her mouth to speak, but the door burst open before she could find the words. Keisha rushed back into the living area, her phone held out in front of her. Uncle Solomon followed close behind. There's a video circulating the internet. Naima, Jiwoo, you need to see this now. She practically ran across the room and thrust her phone at them. The screen showed social media, multiple apps, multiple platforms, all showing the same horrifying thing. Videos of Uncle Solomon's arrest. The videos were everywhere. Comments filled the screens. Fake pastor exposed. Church corruption in Korea. Pastor's arrest. Scandal. I knew the chapel was suspicious. Foreign pastors stealing from Koreans. Hashtags were trending. Here's a fake pastor, Harsarkan church scandal, our pastor arrested, our corrupt church, Barzar, deport the church girl. It was everywhere, unstoppable. The internet had grabbed this story and wasn't letting go because scandal sells and foreign pastor arrested is content gold. My superiors have been calling nonstop. His voice was heavy. The church board, the denomination leadership here in Korea. They've all seen the videos. This is all my fault, Jiwoo said. I should have never gotten you involved. I should have left the chapel out of it. I guess I'm paying for my sins now, Uncle Solomon said. Naima looked at Jiwoo. And I'll be leaving Seoul. Wow! Let's take a deep breath. Naima just said the 4 words that broke him. I'll be leaving Seoul. The innocent church girl who became a killer. The Mafia king who learned to love. And now, she's leaving. Everything just fell apart in one sentence. Mrs. Yoon, dead by Naima's hand, 3 shots without hesitation. Taehyung, dead saving the brother he betrayed. The traitors, burned alive by Jiwoo's hand. Uncle Solomon's career, destroyed by viral videos. Part 10 is the series finale where everything ends. Will Jiwoo let her go? Can Naima ever go back to being that innocent girl? Does love survive when everything turns to ash? Can a killer and a believer have a future together? This is it, the final chapter. No more cliffhangers, no more to be continued, no more wait till the next day. Everything will be answered in part 10. The church girl who killed for love. The mafia king who burned the world for her. The impossible romance that defied every rule. One final choice, one final goodbye, one final story. Are you ready to say goodbye to Jiwoo and Naima? Because I'm not.